What is up, folks? This is TwistedAbsolution, back again with another video, and today we are going to be talking Star Wars. I know what you might be thinking, this is a little late. Yes, it is, but not that late, as the movie hasn't even been out for a full month yet. So a lot of people are still going back for seconds, thirds, fourths, and maybe even fifths. Me, myself, I only saw it once, and that is pretty much all I need to make this video for you, and this is going to be my unfiltered thoughts on Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens. So, if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend that you go and watch the video, or go watch the movie, and then come back and watch this video if you haven't already. So, there's going to be a lot of spoiler talk in it. I don't really know if it can necessarily be qualified as spoilers, because pretty much everyone has already seen this movie when it came out. So I saw it on the 21st, came out on the 18th of last month, and I gotta say, I'm impressed with the visuals. I love the cinematography, and the lighting and the setting is just to die for. J.J. Abrams definitely outdid himself with that. Like I said, this is going to be my unfiltered thoughts, so if I do stutter, if I do forget my words or hang over some sort of topic, then I'm going to be leaving that in there because I don't really want to delve into anything and then just censor it out, basically. Like I said, though, the cinematography is just wonderful. J.J. Abrams has always been really good at making a movie look good, especially evident in Star Trek, as well as Star Trek's sequel, Into Darkness. I highly enjoyed Into Darkness. Didn't really care much for the first one. I thought it was all flair and no substance, personally. But then again, I'm not really that much into Star Trek, period. So that could have something to do with it. But I did greatly enjoy Into Darkness. So I was expecting pretty much the best out of Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens. But it did disappoint me on a few levels. And, you know, it kind of expected you to suspend your disbelief in a few, if not a lot, of sequences, such as when Rey gets a hold of Luke's lightsaber that fell into a chasm, into a bottomless pit from Bespin. So how in the hell did she get that from a temple on a different planet? I will never know. But then again, I don't read the books, so they could have explained it there. I looked it up, and it said somehow it got recovered by a merchant, and then was purchased, and then that's how it got into the temple, but I'm not entirely sure on that. So there were a few instances where you had to just suspend your disbelief, but you know, J.J. Abrams, I think, is a wonderful director. He definitely knows what he wants to accomplish in his vision, but the thing is, he's not the greatest storyteller, and that is highly evident in this movie, where Rey becomes somewhat of a Mary Sue. And now, I know that a lot of people have been saying otherwise, that, you know, she's not trained, but she comes from a family that is very, very, very highly Force sensitive. But if that's the case, Anakin was practically made of the stuff, of Force. I don't really want to say the M word, but he had more midi-chlorians than Master Yoda, apparently. And he was practically, you know, comprised of the Force. He was conceived by the Force. So, by that logic, shouldn't Anakin be powerful from the get-go and be using the Force during his slavery time on Tatooine? No, he still needed 3 movies of training before he could do the awesome stuff that we know him to do as Darth Vader. He still needed all that training, but Rey, all she needs to do is grab a lightsaber and she knows everything. Oh, yeah, the Force exists. Okay, we're going to use the Jedi mind trick on a First Order soldier. So, it has you suspend your disbelief for a little moment just to accept what happened. And that's not always a good thing. I'm all for suspension of disbelief when it's necessary. There were a couple moments, even in the original trilogy, where you're like, you know, that's not really that realistic, but I can go for it. You know, like the Ewoks destroying the machines with rocks and sticks. I mean, that's not exactly very likely, but it could happen. So I can suspend my disbelief on that. But this movie just seemingly has you accept that a branch of the Empire came out of nowhere. They don't govern anything, yet the Republic was completely oblivious to them hollowing out a planet to make Starkiller Base a third Death Star, mind you. That's what it is. Don't even deny it. Except the Death Star was more powerful. That's the thing. The Death Star didn't need other stars or other suns to draw energy from. It could make its own energy because it was a plasma blast, much like the original blaster bolts, except a lot bigger and a lot more intense, obviously, to the point where they could destroy a planet. Now, this could be argued that, well, Starkiller Base can destroy multiple planets at the same time. But what happens when all of the suns are gone? What happens when all the stars in reach are gone, are consumed? You're pretty much left with a hollow shell of a planet, Starkiller Base. I mean, and what's the point of creating it a planet that draws energy from a heat source on an ice world? I mean, it just seemed like they were trying to emulate Hoth a little bit, much like they were trying to emulate Tatooine on Jakku. And a lot of the things in this movie also happen in Star Wars Episode IV, A New Hope, the first Star Wars movie to ever come out. So a lot of people have been saying that, but this is the thing. It's a little bit different in execution. There were a lot of scenes that I did enjoy in The Force Awakens, more than I did enjoy in my favorite movie, Episode IV, but it does draw heavily from that plot structure. Maybe even a little bit more so in the actual execution as well. It just seems like Poe acted like Princess Leia in the beginning. BB-8 was, of course, R2-D2. Finn was C-3PO for a little while, but then he changed into being half Luke, and Rey was the other half. And it just seemed like instead of creating new characters, they were creating new characters but in the same archetypes or architecture as the old ones, and just sticking them in that mold, basically. And I didn't really like that too much. I mean, you know, Kylo Ren is Darth Vader, Snoke is the Emperor Palpatine, Han Solo is Obi-Wan Kenobi, as much as he doesn't want to admit it, because there have been articles saying that Han Solo does not think that he, or Harrison Ford, excuse me, doesn't think that he was Obi-Wan Kenobi in the movie, but we all kind of know that that's kind of going to be the case, especially since Harrison Ford is slated to return in Episode VIII, and I'm guessing that that is going to be kind of like a Force ghost sort of thing, because his family was Force sensitive. Maybe he wasn't, but maybe he fine-tuned his senses to become Force sensitive? I have no clue. It's just all speculation up here. As far as the actual lightsaber battles go, I was very, very underwhelmed by them. And I'm not saying that just because I don't think that they need to be, you know, prequel fast and all over the place and flashy, but I think if they're not going to be flashy, I think they need to have at least some sort of emotional grounds for you to invest yourself in. Like, for instance, the fights in the original trilogy weren't exactly the fastest, but you could believe them, and they had enough emotional impact to keep you interested and to keep you hooked by the time they were over. I mean, they would be constantly talking to each other, they would be in dark lit rooms. In the 6th episode, in Return of the Jedi, they would be trying to turn each other to the dark side and to the light, and it was just very interesting how the character dynamics kind of conflicted with each other, and I really highly enjoyed that. The thing is, though, in this one, in Episode VII, we don't have any of that. The fights are slow, they're androgynous, they kind of go on for a really long time, and they're very, very predictable and poorly choreographed, in my opinion. Now, the lighting, the setting, and the tone of the movie does make up for this in some degree. Like I said, J.J. Abrams is a phenomenal director when it comes to art direction as well as setting, and I really do love the setting and the tone. Everything just feels so cold on the ice world of Starkiller Base, and when you're actually watching them fight, you feel a chill. And I think that's one of the best parts. That was one of my favorite parts of the fight, but it just wasn't that, you know, good, I guess. It just wasn't that well choreographed, and it wasn't really anything that you felt interested in or invested in enough to really care about it, who wins or who dies. But that could also be due to the fact that they didn't spend enough time actually going in and developing these characters as well. From what I gather, Kylo Ren is an emo, wannabe Darth Vader with daddy issues. That's basically what he is. Luke is a very lonely hermit. They actually do have Twitter accounts making fun of these archetypes. And, you know, Darth Vader, whenever he went into the Imperial Death Star, whenever he went into conversation with some of these generals, it was, you wrong me, you make me mad, I choke you out like a bitch. But Kylo Ren, whenever Hux or anyone else, any of the other First Order generals talks to him and tells him what to do and tells him not to do something, he listens like a little baby and doesn't say anything about it. I mean, he's not that intimidating. He's not Vader. He doesn't have the aggressive overtones, except for when it seems like he is trying to make a point by destroying stuff with his weird little looking lightsaber thing that they never explain. But it just comes off as being a temper tantrum more than I'm angry and you will suffer, because he doesn't actually end up accomplishing anything. I mean, Darth Vader would at least get results. He would at least, choke people out, act like he's forgiving, be very, very, very intimidating when it comes to introducing the Emperor, especially when he says, the Emperor is not as forgiving as I am. And we all know that Lord Vader is not forgiving in the slightest. So building that up was just perfect. But when it comes to Kylo Ren, I think his execution was very poor. But I do think that it will be interesting seeing where his character goes in the future, but I'm just not that invested in him as a person, I suppose. And that kind of stems from the fact that he removes his mask all too early. We see his face, he looks kind of washed out and emo-ish, and like he's, just kind of there, I guess. And Supreme Leader Snoke, his delivery of your father, Han Solo, was not nearly as special or meaningful as Vader's delivery in Empire, the fact that he was Luke's father. It was just kind of mentioned and brought up in passing, like, oh, well, your father, Han Solo's on the way. And it's like, oh, well, okay, I guess it's his father. We don't know enough about Kylo Ren to care who his father is, even if it is an established character such as Han Solo. So I guess I don't really get where they're coming from with the fact that, these are the characters and you should care about them when they're just fitting old stereotypical archetypes at this point. But it is what it is. We'll see what Episode 8 has to offer, but I'm not really thinking that it's going to be much different, but we'll have to see. I did really like the movie, but I think that there are a lot of problems with it. I know I just spent a good portion of this movie, or this video, kind of complaining about some of the film's downfalls, but some of the things that it did right was having a actual conflict with the dark side and the light side. We had two characters, Finn and Kylo Ren, and they were very, very conflicted with either join the First Order or stay with the First Order and fight for the dark side, or come to the light and fight for the Resistance, or for the Republic, basically, if you will. And that was a very interesting dynamic, especially when Finn decided to rescue Poe from being imprisoned, and they stole a TIE fighter. That was actually very entertaining to watch, especially since it was connected by a cable. That was my favorite scene in the entire movie. I absolutely loved it. They're just making off with a TIE fighter like it's nobody's business. And then he asks if you can, man the cannons or man the plasma bolts, the guns, basically, and protect them, and it was awesome. I mean, that scene was perfect. I really liked that scene. It established two characters, Poe and Finn, and that's where Finn gets his name. He didn't even have a name. He was basically genetically engineered from birth, or taken from his family from birth, and brought up to be a stone-cold killer, but for whatever reason, he decided not to be. Traitor. But yeah, that meme was pretty awesome, too. Anyways, that was when Poe said, okay, so I'll call you Finn. That was a perfect and very, very natural way of introducing a character. And it was very natural exposition that you don't really see that much in movies anymore. So I really did like that. And I also liked the fight scenes on the planet where Han Solo takes Rey and Finn to get the lightsaber, or to get a transport, basically, to the Resistance base. to fight the First Order. So I really like that scene where they're fighting against all the troops that are coming down. And the only thing that I really didn't like is the fact that Kylo Ren just kind of freezes Rey, takes her in, only for you to find out that she was never in any danger at all. Because, hey, Rey, Mary Sue, she's a woman. She needs to be badass. She needs to be invincible. I thought that Rey was pretty much the equivalent of God mode in video games, where you never really believe that she's in any sort of danger. Even in the final fight with Kylo Ren, you know she's going to kick his ass, especially after Finn practically loses. Well, he does lose to him. And then Rey comes in, all Mary Sue-like, and just kicks his ass. And it's like, well, okay, no problem here. All you need to do is say, hey, remember the Force? You could be a powerful ally to us, stuff like that, you know? And there she goes. She can use the Force. Oh, yeah, that's right, you know? Shouldn't you have been knowing this? Because you know the Force is real and you used it against Kylo Ren earlier? But there is a theory going on that Rey is Luke's daughter. We'll see how much validity that holds. I don't really know at this point. It might be good. It might not. As far as people saying, like, the red pill philosophy or whatever, saying this movie pushes a feminist/SJW agenda, highly doubtful. They probably just want a diversity in casting. Now, I know I sound like I'm white knighting for this movie, but I really don't think that it's pushing any sort of agenda. I do think that it's maybe pushing for more of a women in lead roles agenda, but I don't think it's completely pushing for social justice warriors or feminism in its entirety. I mean, yeah, it does have a woman in God mode, but it doesn't have all of the other characteristics, such as the PC language, the marginalization, safe spaces, or whatever, you know. But I guess the First Order are in their own little echo chamber, because no one knew that they were even existing. And you'd think that the Republic would be aware of another planet-destroying base, but, you know, whatever. Suspension of disbelief, red flag, you know. But anyways, overall, it was a decent movie. I'd place it somewhere in between Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith being better, and Return of the Jedi being a little bit under. But I do like the fact that they included a lot of the older and familiar characters as well. And it was very interesting to see Han Solo in his not youth, but in old age, I suppose would be the right word, and how different he was from when we last saw him in Jedi. That was very, very unique, and especially when, you know, Leia came on screen and you're just like, oh, you know, they're separated and now they're, you know, actually reconciling, and you can actually see the emotion of how distraught they are over Kylo Ren, or Ben Solo, I should say, going to the dark side. And they were very distraught. They were very torn up over it, so much so that it broke them up. I did like that dynamic. That was a very, very emotional and investment. It was an emotional investment, and it was a very good dynamic to have in the movie. And I would just wish they would have fleshed it out a little more. And I wish that they would have saved the reveal for Han Solo being Kylo Ren's father for maybe Episode 8 or Episode 9. That would have been a very good final climactic battle between Han Solo and Kylo Ren, especially if Kylo Ren is to kill Han Solo. I just really wish that they would have saved that. I mean, it seemed too premature to me. Like, oh, well, your father, Han Solo's here. Don't slip to the light side. And he's talking to the helmet. It's like, I don't want to slip to the light side, grandfather. It's like, dude, just do what you gotta do. Seriously. I just wish that they would have waited for that. So, overall, it was executed pretty well with Han Solo, you know, shouting to Ben and going up over the bridge. But you know shit was gonna go down. You knew that no one was going to, you know, not both of them was going to walk out of there alive. Both of them were not going to walk out of there. Someone had to die, basically, and you knew that as soon as Han Solo shouted out to Ben and walked out over the reactor. Now, I did like the fact that, you know, Kylo Ren faked him out a little bit. So he did, you know, kind of play a little dirty, play a little cheap with faking him out and killing him, and he falls over the reactor, much like the Emperor and Darth Maul before him. But as we know from people falling to their deaths, they always manage to come back. Now, as far as fan theories go, Jar Jar Binks being a Sith Lord didn't happen. Now, with Darth Plagueis and Kylo Ren, with our Supreme Leader Snoke, I should say that a lot of people are saying that Darth Plagueis is Kylo Ren's mentor, Supreme Leader Snoke, and Snoke is the father of Darth Vader, which would explain why Kylo Ren takes orders from him unquestionably. But there's the matter of the makers and the creators of the series actually saying and going on record that Supreme Leader Snoke is not Darth Plagueis. But if we have learned anything from fake-outs before, like in Episode VII when they killed Han Solo, this could be complete and utter lies. I would be very interested and very intrigued if they brought back Darth Plagueis in some way, but it would seem kind of like a cheap ploy, a little bit, to undermine the Emperor, especially. But it would be really cool if they actually decided to clone him as well. That would be really cool for the Emperor. Maybe that would be their ultimate plan. But as it is a trilogy, we'll have to wait for the other parts to come out before we can really judge the whole series as a whole, as far as where they're going. But as of right now, I think that Star Wars The Force Awakens, it's a good movie, but it's definitely not the best Star Wars there has ever been. And to say that would be a little bit ignorant, I suppose, since most people have only seen it a few times. It's still very new, and it still falls under that category of, I guess, just you gotta watch it more and have more time to really analyze it. So, with that, that's really all I have to say. Aside from some moments that I did say that you have to suspend your disbelief for, and some moments where the characters are either Mary Sue's or God modes, or architects stereotypes of those characters who came before them in the original trilogy, I did quite highly enjoy the movie. I loved it, especially scenes where Finn and Poe jacked the TIE Fighter. That was very interesting. Some emotional bonding with Han Solo and Leia. I did like the cinematography as well as the lighting, the setting, and in the beginning with the First Order where they're destroying the Republic. I did like that scene where instead of a cold and shallow empire, the First Order was brought up to seem more like Hitler and the Nazi Party. I did like those parallels because it did show that they are a force to be reckoned with. They're not just the same old empire. So I did like that. But like I said, there are just a few too many instances where you have to suspend your disbelief, among other things. So that's really all I have to say on the video, on the film Star Wars Episode VII. Go see it if you haven't already, but then again, if you haven't seen it, you probably wouldn't have made it this far in my video. So that's all I gotta say. Thank you for watching. My name is TwistedAbsolution, and I am out.